School by Percy MacKaye. Read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. 1. Old Hezekiah leaned hard on his hoe, and squinted long at Eben, his lank son. The silence shrilled with crickets, day was done, and row on dusky row, tall bean-poles ribbed with dark the gold-bright afterglow. Eben stood staring, ever, one by one, the tendril tops turned ashen as they flared. Still Eben stared. Oh, there is wonder on New Hampshire hills, hoeing the warm, bright furrows of brown earth, and there is grandeur in the stone wall's birth, and in the sweat that spills. From rugged toil its sweetness, yet for wild young wills there is no dew of wonder, but stark dearth, in one old man who hoes his long-been rows, and only hoes. Old Hezekiah turned slow on his heel, he touched his son. Through all the carking day there are so many littlish cares to weigh, large natures down, and steel the heart of understanding. Son, how is't ye feel? What are ye staring on, a gal? A ray flashed Eben from the fading afterglow. He dropped his hoe. He dropped his hoe, but sudden stooped again, and raised it where it fell. Nothing, he spoke, but bent his knee, and crack, the handle broke, splintering. With glare of pain he flung the pieces down, and stamped upon them. Then, like one who leaps out naked from his cloak, ran. "Here, come back! Where are you bound, you fool?" he cried. "To school!" 2. Now on the mountain morning laughed with light and all the future in her face, for there she looked on many a far-off place, and wild adventurous sight, for which the mad young autumn wind hallowed with might, and dared the roaring mill-brook to the race, where blue jays screamed beyond the pine-dark pool, "To school! To school!" Black-coated, Eben took the barefoot trail, holding with wary hand his Sunday boots. Harsh catbirds mocked his whistling with their hoots. Under his swallow-tail, against his hip-strap bumping, clinked his dinner pail. Frost maples flamed, lone thrushes touched their lutes. Grey squirrels bobbed, with tails stiff, curved to backs, to eye his tracks. Soon at the lonely crossroads he passed by, the little one-room schoolhouse. He peered in. There stood the bench where he had often been admonished flagrantly to drone his numbers. Now to this he said good-bye, for mightier lure of more romantic scene, good-bye to childish rule and homely chore for evermore. All day he hastened like the flying cloud, breathless above him, big with dreams, yet dumb. With tightened jaw he chewed the tart spruce gum, and muttered half aloud, huge oracles. At last, where through the pine-tops bowed the sun, it rose. His heart beat like a drum, and there it rose, his tower of prophecy, the Academy. 3. They learn to live who learn to contemplate. For contemplation is the unconfined God who creates us. To the growing mind, freedom to think is fate, and all that age and after-knowledge augurate lies in a little dream of youth enshrined. That dream to nourish with the skilful rule of love is school. Eben, in mystic tumult of his teens, stood bursting, like a ripe seed, into soul. All his long life he had watched the great hills roll, their shadows, tints, and sheens, by sun and moonrise, yet the bane of hoeing beans, and the round of joyless chores, his father's toll, blotted their beauty. Nature was as naught. He had never thought. But now he climbed his boyhood's castle tower, and knocked. Ah, well then, for his after-fate, that one of nature's masters opened the gate, where, like an April shower, live influence quickened all his earth-blind seed to power. Strangely his sense of truth grew passionate, and like a young bull led in yoke to drink, he bowed to think. There also bowed their heads with him to quaff the snorting herd, and many a wholesome grip he had of rivalry and fellowship. Often the game was rough, but Eben tossed his horns and never balked the cuff, for still through play and task his dream would slip, a radiant herdsman guiding destiny to his degree. 4. Once more old Hezekiah stayed his hoe to squint at Eben, silent. Eben scanned a little roll of sheepskin in his hand, while, row on dusky row, tall bean-poles ribbed with dark the gold-pale afterglow. The boy looked up. Here was another land, mountain and farm with mystic beauty flared, where Eben stared. Stooping, he lifted with a furtive smile 2 splintered sticks and spliced them. Nevermore his spirit would go beastwise to his chore. Blinded, for even while he stooped to the old task, sudden in the sunset's pile his radiant herdsman swung a fiery door, through which came forth with far-born trumpetings poets and kings. His fellow conquerors, there Virgil dreamed, there Caesar fought and won the barbarous tribes, there Darwin, pensive, bore the ignorant jibes, and one with thorns redeemed. From malice the wild hearts of men there surged and streamed with chemic fire the forges of old scribes, testing anew the crucibles of toil to save God's soil. So Eben turned again to hoe his beans, but now to ballads which his herdsman sang. Henceforth he hoed the dream in which the dung, and for his ancient spleens, planting new joys, imagination found him means. At last Hezekiah loosed his tongue. "Well, boy, this scroll, what has it learned ye to know?" He said, "To hoe." The Forum, Percy MacKaye. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.